Hi, this is Michaela from Team Retro, where we like retro games, we like roguelikes, and we like the devices that bring them to us. So I'm actually very excited for today's video because I ordered some brand new buttons for my RG300 back in August, and they actually just showed up today. I was so excited by this that I just decided to go ahead and do the modification and record it for the channel so that you guys can see how this is done if you are interested in doing a mod like this for yourself. I actually purchased these from the SakuraRetroModding Etsy store, and I'll include a link in the description in case you want to do the modification for yourself. Now, I bought the buttons for the RG350, but these buttons will still fit in the RG300. And while I was at it, I also bought a Game Boy Advance sticker for my RG351P. Unfortunately, it got a little bent in shipping, so we're going to try to put it on anyways and see if we can still get it to stick. Now, before we get started with this mod, I just want to do a couple of shout-outs. First, I want to thank everybody for your subscriptions. We are well over 200 subs at this point. So I just want to take a minute and I want to thank everybody for your support of this channel. And I am very excited to continue to bring you more content in the future. Now, earlier this week, I made a decision, which I announced on Twitter, to discontinue my Twitch streams and focus primarily on this YouTube channel. And I don't want to go into the details in this video, so if you want to know what the announcement was, you can go to my Twitter or my Discord, and you can read about it there. However, since I'm no longer going to be doing live streams, I want to do a shout out for somebody who is. And that would be a gentleman by the name of Budget Aquaman. He produces some really fun content, he's got a great personality, and he has an amazing community. So definitely go and check him out. And I also want to give a shout out to the Best Spuds channel. They do a lot of Let's Plays, and they also do some content with retro gaming. I actually met one of their members at a retro gaming store, and they've been producing content on YouTube for a long time. I'll link to both of these content creators in the description, and I do recommend that you go give them a follow and take a look at some of their content because it is really good. With that out of the way, let's bust out this RG300 and let's get started on this mod. So let's start by taking a look at these buttons. They actually come in a really nice small box, and I was overall very impressed by this packaging. It even has the SakuraRetroModding logo onto it, so I'm pretty sure the box was 3D printed, but nonetheless still very impressive. And here are the buttons themselves. I opted for the dark and light purple versions that match what is on a US Super Nintendo controller, because the RG300 kind of models itself as a hybrid between a Game Boy and a Super Nintendo in looks and aesthetics. So I figured, why not get the purple buttons to match? And what I like about these is they have the concave and convex feel of an original Super Nintendo controller. So the hope is while I'm playing that it'll feel like I'm using a Super Nintendo controller, but it's really just the buttons on the RG300. And here's the RG351P that we're going to put the sticker on. And I'm just going to show the system next to the sticker. You could see that it's just meant to wrap right around the screen, and it's designed to cover up the Anbernic logo and replace it with a Game Boy Advance logo to make this look a little bit more like a Game Boy Advance. It would probably look better on the purple one, but that's okay. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that our system is powered off, and let's go ahead and open up the battery cover and let's take out the battery. And let's take out the SD card containing the firmware, and let's set that aside as well. Now we have 6 screws overall that we need to remove. Let's just put some padding down here to protect the screen. And we're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're going to take out the top two and the bottom two screws right from the unit and set them aside. You might want to make sure that you keep them in place in the order you took them out so that you know which ones go where when you go to put it back. And inside the battery compartment are two more screws. We're going to go ahead and take those out as well. Alright, and we are ready to take this back panel off. I have to resist the urge to say back piece because people used to come into GameStop all the time when I worked there, and they used to ask for the back piece, referring to like a battery cover or something like that, and it would drive me and my old boss crazy. And he's actually a really good friend of mine, and I know he's watching this video, so if you're watching, back piece. Alright, so let's go ahead and take the back piece off, and you can see the motherboard here, and I accidentally forgot to take out the other SD card, so I'm just going to do that now. Don't do this. Make sure you take out the SD cards before you open up the unit. And now we have to be very careful here lifting up the motherboard because there are two ribbon cables on the other side that connect to the screen. And we want to try and keep those ribbon cables attached as much as possible. We don't want these to fall out because it's a pain in the neck to get them back in. Let's go ahead and remove the power button for now. We'll put that aside. And let's lift this up to see what we're working with. You could see those two ribbon cables, and you could see the buttons with the membranes here. So we're going to carefully peel off the membrane that holds the four buttons in place. And we'll set that aside for now. And then we'll just go ahead and tilt the system here and just remove those four face buttons. I'm sure there's a more ceremonious way to remove them, but I just kind of went for it. And let's go ahead and carefully put the new buttons in. You want to just make sure that they're sitting flush with the system so that they're sticking out of the front end. And you want the membrane to be able to fit comfortably over them. And this could get tricky because you're trying not to remove those ribbon cables, and you're also trying to manipulate the buttons and the membrane and trying to get everything put back in the way it is. Just go slow and be very careful. You can actually see here I'm actually starting to struggle with trying to put the membrane back in, and that's because the buttons are not flush. So I'm going to actually go back in, do this off camera, and see if I can get everything to seat properly. So here we are, we got the buttons seated, and we're just going to try to put the membrane on. However, like I said, you have to be really careful when you are trying to do this without removing the ribbon cables because you don't want them to come out. Actually, during this process of me putting the membrane on, I actually was a little careless, and those ribbon cables did actually fall out. So I'm just going to own up to it really quick here and show you what happened as an example of what not to do while doing this modification. Except if you're really good with seating ribbon cables, you can just go ahead and take this off all the way. Just be very careful while doing it because you don't want these to break because then you won't have a screen. And there's where it happens. Womp womp. Now, since I messed up and unseated the ribbon cables from the screen, I might as well show you how the buttons are supposed to sit in the RG300 because the reason I was struggling was because these bottom buttons weren't seating in quite right and the membrane wasn't going on quite right as a result. So I was able to actually put the buttons in properly, and I was actually able to seat this membrane properly. However, now I have the challenge of putting those ribbon cables back in, and I don't feel confident doing it on camera. So before I get involved in that project, I'm just going to put the back piece on really quick, and I'm going to just click the buttons and just make sure that they're sticking out and they're clicking properly, and they seem to be. So let's go ahead and let's get involved with putting these cables back on. and I'll show you a picture as to how they're supposed to look when I'm done. So here's the ribbon cable actually sitting back in the unit, and I wanted to show this to you because if this happens to you, I just want you to be aware that you don't put the ribbon cables in through the edge of the motherboard. They're actually curved a little bit, so you actually have to put them in through the top. So you want to insert them facing down toward the motherboard, not facing up coming in from the edge. Also in this picture, I did take the speaker out of the bottom corner so you don't see it, but I did put the speaker back in place before closing this unit up. Hopefully you're more careful than I was and you won't have to worry about this. Alright, now that we got the ribbon cables back in and everything seated, let's go ahead and take the power button and put that back into place. And let's put the rear plate back on. Let's just make sure that you seat it properly so that way the L and R buttons still click and still respond. And I'm only going to put the middle two screws in to start because I want to put the SD card and the battery back in, and I want to actually make sure that everything works because if the screen doesn't turn back on, I'm going to have to go back in and reseat those ribbon cables. So let's test this first before we close up the unit completely. And let's go ahead and put the battery and the SD card back in. During this process, if you're like me, you probably put fingerprints on the screen, so we're going to wipe those down as well. Alright, moment of truth. Let's turn this bad boy on and see if it still works. Phew, and there it is. It booted right into RetroFW. The screen seems perfectly fine. So let's go in and test a couple of games and just make sure that the buttons are working properly. Here's Tetris for the NES, and we're clicking the buttons, and we're even clicking the buttons for Turbo, and everything seems to be running fine. The buttons seem to be responding very well. They feel very nice. So let's try one more game that actually utilizes all four buttons and see what we get. And here's Super Mario All-Stars, Super Mario Bros. 3, playing on the Pocket SNES emulator. And again, these button mods seem to be holding off. Everything seems responsive. Mario's jumping. Mario's running. We're going to try the tail swing just to make sure. And yeah, everything's snappy. And again, these buttons feel really great. Now that we know the screen is working and the buttons are working, let's go ahead and hold start and power off the unit, turn off the power button, and let's go ahead and put these final four screws in. And that's it. Our button mod is complete. Our system turns on and it looks really good. So before we end, let's go ahead and let's just do the sticker mod on the RG351P. Alright, so this is a much easier modification. We're simply going to peel off the sticker, clean off the RG351P just to make sure there's no fingerprint or residue. And we're just going to put the sticker in place. We'll match it up with the corner. And then I'm just going to run over the sticker with my finger and wipe out some of the fuzzies that are on the other end here. So that way we could just get a nice clean sticker placement with no bubbles. You could see there's some bubbles at the top that I just kind of ran my thumb over to just kind of work out. And just keep playing with it until everything looks nice and flat. I don't see any problem with the adhesive. You should be fine. Once you have the sticker in place to satisfaction, we're just going to go ahead and turn on the system and boot up the game just to make sure that we aren't covering any part of the screen with the sticker. And I just booted up Super Mario World on my RG351P. Unfortunately, my camera decided to wig out on the black system. It has trouble focusing on black for whatever reason. I think it's an issue across cameras because it does it on my phone too. But the big takeaway here is that you can see the full screen. The sticker doesn't cover any part of it. That means our sticker placement is good, and we have a nice little sleek custom look to our RG351P without having to open it up. And that'll do it for this video. There were some hiccups along the way, but overall I'm very happy with both of these modifications. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave any opinions or questions that you may have in the comments. And if this video was helpful to you in any way, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.